So, Harish, let's dive straight into it. You say Office Secrets is 50 human truths you should absolutely know. Now, I'm a bit woozy with my cough and cold, so please tell me, I don't think I can handle 50 right now. Tell me three that I should know absolutely. Three most important for you.
So you know, Aparna, typically when you talk of office secrets, you think of some, secret strategies, you think of financials. I can see many people here from the corporate world. These are none of those secrets, okay? These are all human secrets. And you want me to tell you three?
Three
Three.
that you think
So,
everyone, most important secrets.
yeah, so I really think the most important secret in our office lives, if we really want to work very well, is kindness and generosity. Are you kind to the people who work with you? Are you kind to the people around you? Are you kind to members of your team? Are you generous to them? And generosity doesn't mean just financial generosity. Generosity means generosity of time. Do you spend time with them? Do you provide them the inputs that they want? Do you help them to resolve problems that they're facing? So I think kindness and generosity are the foundation, because if you don't have kindness and generosity, however big an achiever you are, you'd be very, very robotic. You would not connect with people very well. So that's one that I would highlight straight off. The second one that I learned, I think it may be a little cliched to say it, but I think it's true. You know, in this book, there are many, many humorous situations that I describe. I describe how you should get rid of digital distraction. I describe how you should find places in your office which are ideal for ideation. How you should find gorgeous offsite venues which make your team and you bond together much better. But running across that entire stream, Aparna, is, the ability to, at the end of the day, you have to take your work seriously, but never take yourself seriously. Okay? Work is serious. You have to do the work that you do very, very well. But you you should never imagine yourself being on some kind of a serious pedestal. Okay? We are all human beings. Um, there's enough, if you step back a little bit from your office environment, there is enough happening in each of our offices that will make us smile and laugh and pull our own feet. So never take yourself seriously. I think but take your work seriously. So that's the second that I'd like to say. Um, and if there's a third one I want to pull out, Aparna, it is the ability to, you know, shall I say this? The ability to, for me, whatever the day is like, how much ever work I have, okay, I am a foodie at heart. So for me, whatever is happening during the day, that may be a board meeting, it may be a marketing meeting, an advertising meeting, for me it's very important to make sure that I eat right during the day. And then the third secret may vary for many of you. But I don't know how many of you are foodies here. Virtually everyone. So everyone here, I didn't see hands raised there. So I think those are three secrets that stand out in my mind, and which have kept me in good humor over the years.
Okay, great. I'm not going to argue with the first one, with the third one at all. But maybe people could say the kindness and generosity. You've been with the Tata Group for decades, and this is a group that's known for being with its people. So, really taking care of its people, having a very empathetic policy towards its people. It's being people-oriented. The rest of the corporate workplace that we see is a lot more cutthroat. So where is there room for kindness and generosity when the work
So
environment may not be the same?
yeah, let me give you a story, Aparna. Okay, I've dedicated this book to my first boss, and my first boss in the Tata Group was a gentleman called R.K. Krishna Kumar. He later became a director of Tata Sons. He was vice chairman of the Taj Group of Hotels and of Tata Tea and all that. Okay, so legend. He passed away earlier this year, so that's why in particular, this book was dedicated to him. My first steps in office. So he was one of the most aggressive in terms of work. One of the most aggressive bosses have come across. Actually, he was and he used to throw me out of his room ever so often. If he didn't like work that I produced, I've got literally thrown out of, along with the paper that I gave, both of us would go out, fly out of his room. And he was a very, very tough taskmaster. And he was as cutthroat could get, because We were a very small tea company at that time, fighting Hindustan Unilever in India. Eventually, we got to market leadership after a long time because of the leadership he provided. But at the same time, he was very generous and very kind. And I still remember when I got married in 1992, he took the effort to come all the way from Kolkata to Mangalore to attend my wedding. Now, if that is not generosity with time, what else could be? So you can be very, very tough on work and still be kind and generous, and that's a combination that I think works very well in any industry, in any. You don't have to compromise one for the other.
Yeah, so kind of have an iron hand and also have a soft spot in your heart and be there for your people.
Yeah, I think when your people know that you're there for them, then they're willing to stretch themselves as much as as you'd expect. I know because of the kindness and the care the Tata Group has shown me over the years, I've kind of made it my professional home.
Yeah. And the second part you said, which I totally subscribe to is, don't take yourself seriously, take life seriously in a way. But it's kind of hard when, everybody is gunning for that promotion. Everybody wants the corner office. You're measured by how much you're earning, where you live. We live in that society. So, what does it take to acquire a mindset where you can say, I am not trapped by all these trappings. These are all just trappings and I can kind of go beyond them.
Yeah. So there is a piece here, Aparna, that I've written, and I think it's very important for us. If you want to come out, one good way of coming out of your corporate trappings is to actually get a little bit of humor into everything that you do. And because when you get humor, you lighten up the mood, okay? And that's not to do with being in the corporate world. It's in people have researched this and found that in any, whatever you do, whether you're in business, whether in the corporate world, whether you're in some other profession, people have found that as you age, your humor quotient actually comes down. There's research which shows that, there's one particular scientist or researcher, I don't know how they do research like this, okay, but she's shown that you have a humor cliff. When you're in your late 20s, you fall off the humor cliff. And then you stop smiling, you smile less and less and less as you go on in life. The frowns on your brow kind of grow. So I think one very good way I've found with some of my colleagues.
It could be to do with having children, maybe.
Whether you have children or you don't, whether you're married or whether you're not, I think it happens to all of us. But I find some of the people who don't take themselves too seriously also bring a lot of humor quotient into the meetings that they're part of. They narrate a joke. They pull their own feet. They pull my feet if I'm sitting in a meeting next to them. Or they may talk about something which makes the entire meeting light-hearted. So one way to actually pull yourself off a corporate pedestal is to bring a little bit of humor into everything that you do.
Yeah. Actually, even in Vedanta, they say that humor is the ultimate sign of an intellect, of a developed intellect. But anyway, coming back to your book, and just to give an example of the kind of humor that you'll find in Harish's book, he is talking about a chapter called What to Wear When. And he says how, for example, there should be corporate dress codes. One of them should be called the Arctic Chill, because that is a dress code recommended for all offices and conference rooms where erratic air conditioning creates a freezer-like environment from time to time, which I'm sure we've experienced. But I love the one that he said that there's a dress code that says jacket and tie. This is the simplest way to describe business semi-formal dress, which we expect men to wear to most office receptions and business events. And if a tie is not essential, then it can be easily modified to jacket without tie, which is also easily understood. If you want the event to wear a somewhat colorful air, you can try jacket and cool tie. I have two such cool ties, one featuring Winnie the Pooh, and the other one with a picture of James Bond with a smoking gun in his right hand. And I'm waiting to wear them whenever I receive such an invite.
So I actually thought of wearing one of those two ties, Aparna, today. But eventually I went with the shirt which matches the color of the book.
That's good marketing. So I wrote, for the endorsement for this book, I said this book will nourish your intellect, make you laugh out loud, and warm your heart all at the same time. Because basically it makes you think, it kind of touches your soul, it makes you laugh, all of these. So I'm going to share a couple of examples of things that I liked, and then maybe Harish, you could comment on them. Yeah, so I thought one of our most powerful chapters was the one on listening. That basically we don't listen enough at work. And he gives several examples of the ways that we can listen. So one is listening with all our senses. One is forget the food and your hunger, but actually focus on what's happening. And then he asked a really interesting one where he says, wait and then ask. So he says, once you have listened well and there's a natural pause in the speaker's flow of conversation, it is a good idea to ask questions that help bring clarity to your own thinking. Don't hesitate to do this because productive listening requires clarity. Asking a colleague who has come to speak to you to clarify exactly what he means or really needs from you reassures both of you that you are thinking in the same direction. But unless there is some compelling urgency, such as an intergalactic corporate shutdown within the next 5 minutes, don't interrupt a speaker. That will spoil your own voyage of listening and also irritate anyone else. So tell us why listening was so important.
Yeah, so I think, you know, I believe that many of us, it's certainly true of me, Aparna, don't listen well enough. When we listen to someone speaking, we are actually thinking about what we would say next. Or when we listen to someone speaking, we may be thinking of what is the next smart question that I should ask. Or how do I show myself to be intelligent enough by asking the speaker the next question. And then we are not listening with an open mind at all. So if you listen to someone with a very open mind, keeping your own thoughts aside, according to me, that is the best way of listening. You should not begin the process of evaluation till you have heard a speaker fully. If you disturb a speaker midway during her or his talk, then two things happen. The speaker loses the thread of their speaking, and you end up irritating everyone else in the room. So that's why I say wait for a natural pause and then ask your question, and ask it with a very open mind, and also listen with all your senses open. It's not just what the person is talking. You have to listen to the non-verbal cues. You have to see what the body language of the speaker as well as of other people in the room is. So I write about that as well. I say, listen to all senses. Pay attention to non-verbal cues. The best listeners carefully observe the speaker's face and body language to understand exactly what is being meant, including the subtext. So, how something is said, what is left unsaid, that is also equally important. So I think listening is a very, very important skill. And some of the other things you can do to listen well, you should, just like you should wait and ask, listen with an open mind. Okay, keep quiet as you listen. It's important. And I have heard that I read an article that your ratio of listening to speaking should actually be 9:1.
9:1. I've
Yeah,
heard like
ideally.
4:1, but 9:1 is
Okay, so if you, because listening is what brings new knowledge to you. When you speak, you're just sharing your own knowledge. You have to put away your phone. One of the things that takes away from listening deeply to what someone is saying is that desire to see the next WhatsApp message or send the next WhatsApp message. That's a killer. So these are some of the very, very simple techniques that I think all of us can follow if we want to listen very well, but not enough of us listen well. And then when you listen to something, you should also go back and reflect on it and listen to it in your own mind once again, that evening when you are in your gym or that night when you're at home, because that's a different kind of listening which kicks in. You're then able to reflect on what the guy said earlier.
interesting. You also talked about praising others and how important it is to praise others, even if those others happen to be competition. Why is that important for you?
Yeah. So I think as Indians, we are a little reticent with praise. When I go to countries outside India, I find that people are far more forthcoming with praise and appreciation for work which is really done. You lose nothing if you praise and appreciate a person. Of course, you have to praise and appreciate a person only if there is something very good that person has done, and not just as a matter of flattery. Then I don't think it works at all. So praise and appreciation is so important for people to feel good about themselves. All of us who do work, it doesn't matter how senior we are or what kind of work we do, praise and appreciation really touches our heart. If someone says, this is good work that you have done, or someone says, this is a good book that you have written, or whatever else they have to say. The moment you withhold praise, you're not being generous enough. And you gain nothing by withholding praise. You gain everything by giving praise to the other person. That's why I think it's important to praise others. Even competition, when you praise competition, you're kind of setting that benchmark for members of your own team. You're telling them that, listen, this is something that your competition has done which is very good. Now we better do something better than that. So praise also has that impact on members of your team. So for all these reasons, I think praise is one of the most underrated things. Every day, I think we should take a little bit of time to say, today have I seen some good work being done by someone, and have I offered my appreciation and praise to that person?
It's a nice thought. As you said, goes back to your first thought about being generous also.
Yep, it is
In-
part of
as
being
part of that,
generous.
yeah.
It is part of being
It's part
generous.
of that. So how did this column start? You shared the story with me. Maybe you could share it with our audience here so that they have a little context on how the column started and then how the column turned into a book. So just as a background, both Harish and I have been writing for the Mint actually on the same section, I think for the similar time periods. He
And with the
continues
same
to do so
editors.
with the same editor, yeah. But we never interacted professionally.
Okay, so it's very okay. All of you who want to write or do writing already, I didn't write these pieces to come into a book. Okay, I used to be in Titan many years ago, which Mithun knows. So I used to be the chief operating officer of our jewelry and then the watches business, and I used to observe various. There used to be many meetings we used to have with advertising agencies to make ads for Tanishq and Titan and so forth. And one of the things I used to observe very carefully is how biscuits were eaten at those meetings. At those days, biscuits used to be served. These days, I think people have got to serving more exotic things like nuts and so forth. Now, if you look at the way cookies are served in a meeting, when cookies come to a meeting room, this was 10, 15 meetings, I kept observing this. And I found that people used to eat cookies very differently. And let me illustrate that. There used to be people, the moment the plate of cookies comes into the conference room, they would absolutely grab the cookie that they like the best. It would typically be an assortment of a few different kinds of cookies. And they would know exactly what they wanted. And I used to think these are people who will know exactly what they want in life. The moment it comes, abhi grab kar diya, and you started eating it. But I also used to see people who used to kind of, should I pick up a cookie? Should I not pick it up? They would have various hesitation in their mind. Should I pick up the cashew nut? What is it called? The good day. The good day, or should I pick up the chocolate chip cookie? Or should I maybe pick up the simple Mari biscuit? And they used to take a long time to make up their mind before they picked up the cookie they wanted to eat. And that kind of a person to me was a vacillator, didn't know what to do before they finally ate. Then I also used to, see people like, people who would take extreme care of health, and therefore they would be very, very reticent and hesitant to eat a cookie, even if they are hungry. So they would pick at the cookie, eat small pieces, but they would never eat a full cookie themselves. And finally, I also used to see people, used to do conferences in hotels and all that. At the end of it, I also used to see people who would, not just eat cookies, but who would carry a few cookies away with them. And they would say, anyway, we have paid the hotel, so why should we leave these cookies behind? So let's put a few in a bag and take them with us. So as I looked at this, I said, listen, looking at people in offices through the lens of cookies is a nice way of looking at them. And those days I used to write serious articles, Aparna, on marketing and economics and all that. I wrote this article about eating cookies and how it told us a lot about people in offices. And I sent it to the editor at Mint, a guy whom I knew well. His name was Niranjan Rajadhyaksha, who was
Also
the
a
editor
dear
of
friend,
Mint.
yeah.
And Niranjan then forwarded it to a lady called Priya Ramani, who was the editor of Mint Lounge. And suddenly I got an email from her saying, listen, this is a beautiful article. We'd like to carry it on a different page. This cannot feature on the economics page, obviously. So we'd like to feature it on a different page. So I said, fine, you please go ahead and do it. And then they put some nice pictures of cookies and did the article. And lots of people read it. And they said, why don't you continue writing pieces like this? So that was a good thing to do. So that's how this whole thing started. And that article is also here in a chapter called the Cookie Club. You know, I should tell you about my own cookie
Yeah, I was
eating
gonna
habits
ask you.
as well. Yeah, yeah. So, you know, you used to have these, I don't know what is the name of that cookie, but you used to have these beautiful cookies which had jam in the center. Have you seen them? Jim jam. And on top of the jam, there used to be sugar. Sugar. So I used to love those cookies, but I used to love the jam and not so much the rest of the cookie. So I'd eat a lot of those cookies, but you know, if you gave me a plate of 3, 4, you'd find the jam missing from all of them. So that was my style of cookie eating. I still do it. I've not, recently, someone read this book and sent me a packet of those cookies. So I have them at home just now. But that's how this book started. So many books actually start like that. You know, there's a certain core idea and then they blossom out into a full book.
Yeah, but how do you actually, what is your process for writing the column? I mean, I kind of always wonder if your colleagues are thinking, am I going to end up in Harish's column as a cookie vacillator, or how are you making these observations?
So my columns are, you know, there's so much happening in the world around us, Aparna, which is fun. So recently, just 2, 3 months back, I don't know if you guys read this news, that there was a balloon which was floating over America and it was shot down. People, you know, eventually the armed forces shot it down. So that triggered a column in my mind, which is also here, because then it struck me that there are many balloons in our offices. You know, you can, many of us float balloons when we want to float an idea for people to consider. Okay, lots of people in our offices who are very pompous. You can prick their balloons.
Yeah.
Okay, and you'll find many more such examples around
Hot air
that.
balloons.
Hot air balloons as well. We know many of those, don't we? So that led to, so my for these kind of irreverent columns, I just observe, and if something strikes me as being really funny or really interesting, then I try to develop it into a piece and a column. That's very different from my marketing columns where it's more based on consumer observation and what consumers do.
Yeah, so there's no danger of anybody real making it into your columns.
All anonymous, all anonymous, and I attend meetings in so many offices, so it's very difficult for anyone to, you know, I know I'm the guy who ate cookies like this, but very difficult for anyone to place themselves.
I must comment, and I'm very curious to know more about your colleague Suparna Mitra, because you've mentioned her as somebody who's given you a lot of ideas.
Yeah, so Suparna and I worked together in Titan for a long time, and she's still in Titan. She's the chief executive officer of one of the businesses of Titan, the watches business. So what I tend to do when I get a thought in my mind, I have to develop that thought. And I know that she's also very keenly interested in these human aspects of offices. So I typically WhatsApp her and say, can we pick up a conversation on, say, generosity, or can we pick up a conversation on even cookies, or on balloons, or on Hercule Poirot. And if the topic is of interest to her, then we set up some time on a Saturday to chat about different aspects of that topic. And I find that conversations are the best way to bring out different aspects of the topic together. And many of these columns have actually come out of those conversations with her. That's why I've specifically mentioned her name in the acknowledgement section, as well as alongside many other articles.
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting because I myself in my writing have benefited so much from creative partnerships. So it's lovely to have that, somebody to share that. The other thing I would say, I mean, we touched upon it earlier also, but overall you have, and you present in this book, a very positive view of the workplace, Harish. You know, this is a very optimistic and positive view. Is that one that you share, or how does one, you know, in a world where there are so many factors like recession and, you know, toxic behavior, etc., etc. What is your worldview on the workplace?
Yeah, so I agree with you, Aparna. Not everything about every workplace is good. There are toxic behaviors in the workplace. You do hear news about people getting retrenched. And it's not easy for a person to lose his or her job and look for another one. So there are many of those. But in its essence, If you like a workplace, you do very good work there. If you don't like it, you will leave at some stage. You won't stay there for a long time. So the workplace that you want to work in should be one that you like. How can you spend 10 to 12 hours of your time every day in a place that you don't like being in? That's why I'm optimistic about workplaces, and I find lots of people enjoy their work in offices. Not, you may still have to contend with the politics of an office, with the toxicity that some people may bring to an office, but by and large, people in office are good people. And as long as you can relate to them as good people, I think offices can turn out to be very, very positive.
Yeah, I mean, you see workplaces as a force for good. Is that
I
in
do,
your view?
and I think there's so much good that comes out of workplaces. Many of us here must have worked in workplaces, and workplaces must have had some impact on our personality, the way we have developed. Our friends in workplaces, whom we speak to, and I talk about them here, our friends have contributed so much to our lives in our workplaces. The creativity that we see in our workplaces certainly contributed a lot to us. Workplaces have actually, intellectually stimulated us, the discussions that we do in workplaces. So there's so much good in workplaces if we can only look for it.
The other thing I found when I was, doing a lot of my CEO interviews is that we would talk a lot about their daily habits, and I felt that a lot of their daily habits is what contributed to their success. Of course, Atomic Habits and books like that make that very clear. But in a way, I see that this is also what you're trying to say through this book, that all these little things that you're talking about, whether it is the cookie, whether it is meetings, whether it is how we deal with kindness or praise, or these habits that we see every day in the workplace, is actually what makes us successful at a much more macro level. Do you see a connection?
Yeah, I definitely see a connection. Not just habits like kindness and generosity, okay? Habits like what kind of beverages do you offer people who come to your office? You may think it's a very simple thing, but I do find, for instance, when people come to my office and I tell them, will you have a cup of good South Indian filter coffee, people feel really good about it. Okay, because getting good South Indian filter coffee is a nice thing to rejuvenate your soul and your being during the day. Or in many cases I have found, small habits like how you keep your table in front of, we don't give too much thought to how our work table should be kept, but I do find people have different ways of keeping some people like to keep very clean workspaces. Some people have mountains of paper, but they will find exactly what they want within that mountain of paper. And I've seen it many times. For some people, it needs to be only the papers of the day there and nothing more. So even small habits like that mean a lot, because that's the work table you're dealing with every single day. The kind of mugs from which you drink your tea and coffee during the day. And there's a full chapter on that, the kind of mugs and what they say about you as a person. But right from simple glasses and mugs like this to mugs which bear your alma mater, to mugs which bear all kinds of pictures, and that actually livens up your day. Otherwise, why would you drink from mugs like that?
Okay, so we
Because offices at the end of the day, Aparna, are a collection of human beings,
Yeah.
and who want to enjoy themselves, who want to learn, who want to contribute.
Yeah, so it's a good reminder for us to do like an inventory on a lot of our everyday lives. Okay, so I'm going to turn over to the audience in a minute, but we'll do a quick rapid fire round, yeah, where just one or two, I'll tell you what to do. So I'm going to say a couple of things, and I'm going to ask you just to say one word, that first word that comes to mind. So maybe it makes it to your column also.
Yeah.
Chat GPT.
AI.
Okay.
But actually, I was going to say AI is good, but I believe that the opposite of artificial intelligence is even better, which is natural stupidity.
Natural stupidity. Okay, fine. That's better. Office politics.
No.
No. Office romance.
Maybe.
Maybe. Strategy or execution? Choose one.
Execution.
Culture or execution? Choose one.
Culture.
Culture or purpose? Choose one.
Purpose.
Success is, according to you.
Success is, according to me, being fulfilled within yourself.
And happiness is, according to you.
A state of mind.
Great. Thank you so much. Let's turn it over to our audience. What I was thinking was, we have these, Harish. So we asked people to give ideas for your next column.
Okay.
And I don't know what they've written also. Um, Mid-office naps. So I've said, what office secret do you think should be part of Harish's next column? This could be any aspect of everyday office life, funny, serious, even embarrassing. So this one is mid-office naps. I take a 20-minute nap rather than spend 2 hours drowsy. Yes, agree?
I totally agree. You made me stand by saying that because it's true. Sometimes I feel drowsy after an afternoon lunch, particularly if I've had rice for lunch. Otherwise, but it's true. Sometimes I just doze off for 10-15 minutes and it makes me much more rejuvenated. But also, it's not just napping. Sometimes just daydreaming makes you feel much better. You don't need to nap. You can just, your mind can just drift off. And some of my best ideas have come actually when I'm in that state of daydreaming. So that's very, very good. But whoever's written that, I don't know whether the person is here or not. It need not be just a mid-afternoon nap, Aparna. I have also done mid-morning naps.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
known for my post-breakfast nap.
I've done early morning naps if the meeting is very boring or a useless meeting that I'm sitting in. So I can nap many times of the day.
What office secret do you think should be part of Harish's next column? Who is going around with whom?
Yeah, that's a difficult thing to write about. Okay, um, maybe it can be part of my column. Um, so you've already asked me whether office romance is on or not, and I said maybe. So yes, I can do that, but I would also, you know, if I have to say, I mean, if I have to, there's a particular chapter in this book which talks of zodiac signs. And through zodiac signs, I've also indirectly referred to all these aspects of romance. But maybe in my next book, I'll not cover that topic.
You will not? Or what?
I'm not too good at writing about subjects like that.
Okay, fair enough. Who is working for pay versus who is working for passion?
That's a very good topic. That's a very good topic. I think we have to work for both. We can't work only for passion because then that's not going to put my 3 meals on the table and that's not going to help me build financial independence for my family. But if you work without passion, then you may as well not do that work. So I think all of us who are well educated in today's world, I think we have to work for passion, but we also have to ensure that we work for the best pay that we can get in wherever we work. So I'd say work for pay and work for passion. And how do you get into both those spaces at the same time? That's a brilliant subject for a column.
Okay, maybe we can see that. When I feel someone does not listen to my point and I know that I'm right, so I just shut my mouth and close my eyes, and even if the thing is beneficial to the company, but I have given more than 100% to proving it right, because nothing is more important than my peace of mind. So basically saying that they're not being heard, but so they just they take a step back because they're not being heard even when they know that it could help the company.
I resonate with that thought, but I may not entirely agree. I'd like to write a column on when you're not being heard, what should you do? There are many things you can do when you're not being heard. One thing you can do is withdraw, like has been mentioned here. And yes, it can give you peace of mind because we are not being heard at all. The second is you can step back that particular day. You can kind of withdraw from the battle and get back into the war the next day and still go back and talk to the person who was not hearing you on why your argument makes sense. Sometimes that works very well because the person is in a different frame of mind the next day. For instance, if you're not being heard orally in a meeting, you could still put your point of view down on an email or a note and send it across, where the person has enough time to digest it and look at it. So that's also a good way of responding to not being heard. Fourth reaction to not being heard could well be that you kind of insist on being heard. You say, give me a few minutes to make my point and I'll make the point here. And after that, you let it go if people are not willing to take it forward. But you don't withdraw without making your point really well in front of others. The fifth is maybe the way you're making your point is incorrect. Maybe you need to change it. Maybe you need to inject a little bit of humor into the point. Maybe you need to illustrate that point through some other example. So if you're not being heard in a certain way, your mind should go back to how can I be heard? What should I say to be heard? And how can I tailor my argument differently? So all these can come together as a very very good stream of actions for what to do when you're not being.
Yeah, Harish, this is why he's so brilliant.
No,
No, they're
aren't these logical thoughts?
Yeah, they're
which,
logical, definitely. I think they're great ideas. Sorry, before we turn, I want the ultimate secret. I want to know from you. How do you produce so many bestsellers? All Harish's books have been bestsellers, whether he's been writing about the Tatas or Office Secrets. He's just been churning them out regularly.
I don't think I have a specific formula for that, Aparna. I'm very passionate about writing. And there are only two things that I do. I think I've learned to do well in the corporate world. One is marketing and one is writing. And that's who I am. But there's one thing that I've done consciously in all my books, okay? I think people generally hate corporate jargon. So what I've done in my books is I've kept it completely free of jargon and written in very simple English, because I think lots of people like that. We are so caught up in our own jargon of the corporate world. I give people an opportunity to let loose of that jargon when they enter my books.
That's actually, on a serious note, actually, that's a very valuable point, because we forget that a lot of people who are reading it may not have English as their first language.
That's also true. Lots of people may not have English as their first language.
Uh.
It makes it even more difficult to understand, if you put in a word like corporate restructuring, okay, it's a very nice corporate jargon word, but what does it mean to the layman?
Any questions?
Good evening. Thank you for your presence today. It was a lovely talk, both of you. I have a question to ask you regarding marketing, not so much so about writing. Considering I just heard that you have been the COO of Titan, and it involved selling luxury products to wealthy individuals. I want to know, according to you, what is the secret behind making a wealthy individual purchase a luxury product?
Let me be honest with you.
Yes.
I have not marketed.
Honesty is the best policy.
Yeah. I have not marketed luxury products myself. Okay, luxury products in the Tata Group are products like, Jaguar Land Rover cars, or Taj hotels,
Right.
or maybe Mithur, I don't know if you agree with me, maybe Zoya jewelry, okay, which would belong to the luxury space.
Yes.
So I don't have direct, I have knowledge, but I have not directly marketed. I have marketed Tanishq and Titan and
Yeah,
products
yeah.
for the upper middle class.
Right.
With luxury, I think 2 or 3 things work. One, for many people, luxury is a badge or a status symbol. So your ability to convince them that you're buying into a badge means a lot to them.
Yeah.
The second
Yeah.
thing is luxury, I think, is also about the sheer joy of craftsmanship.
Okay.
About the product looking really good, the product being tailored really well. It should be a joy to see and touch and feel. I don't know, Aparna, if you agree with that that kind of feel that luxury should have, and your ability to convey that to people. A Patek Philippe watch, or a piece of Zoya jewelry or Cartier jewelry. The craftsmanship has to be that good that people feel that they get elevated when they wear it or when they use it. So that to me is a second. And the third is, I think, luxury by luxury by nature should not be, there has to be a certain exclusiveness to luxury, exclusivity to luxury. The moment everyone is using luxury, it stops being luxury anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
So there has to be,
Yes.
and as a brand marketer, you have to be able to retain that exclusivity. So those are 2 or 3 thoughts on luxury.
Those are wonderful thoughts. Thank you.
Hi, Harish and Aparna. So good to actually meet you all again here. Really enjoy the conversation. Harish, my question towards you is that the office secret. One of the biggest parts we think of, and this space is that hiring and getting the right team and people, right? So what is the office secret of getting the right person in your team? And I already have two ground rules here, which I think may stand, right? One is, I think, choose the person with the right attitude over skill set, because you can learn a skill but you can't inject that attitude. And I think second would be someone who actually brings their whole self to work. I think if any organization just accepts parts of you which is not your whole self, is like tearing that genesis down, right? But what would be your three major green flags in building your team, and what is that secret?
Yeah, so I'm very clear about those when I sit on an interview panel. I know those. The first thing I look for is this person having the right values? Do they um, do they come across? It's difficult to judge it in an interview, but do they come across as having the right values which matter, which are right for our organization? And different values may matter for different organization. Okay, so if values are there in every organization. Even when the mafia recruits, they would look for the right values for people to join them. But are the right values there? The second thing I look for is exactly what you said, attitude. Does a person bring a positive attitude to everything that he or she does? And that is very, very important, because in organizations you will always have ups and downs. They're never going to be always up. So attitude just helps you to, go past all the ups and downs and keep a very positive frame of mind. And the third thing that I look is there a spark in this person? That's very difficult to pin down and put in numbers. But a spark is an X factor. Do I see something in this person which signifies a little bit out of the ordinary, a little hatke, whatever they do. And that's important, because such a person will definitely bring energy into the team and will make a difference to the team, rather than just fitting in and doing what is conventional.
Yeah, I think they always say, hire for attitude, train for skills. Like,
Yeah.
that's the expression.
That's right. Yeah, you are.
Having worked in Tata's myself for 10 years, I realized that trust is very important, and trust is not only important at a company level to establish leadership, but at a team level also. Now, I'm seeking office secret from you, like as a leader or as a manager, we need to develop trust with our teams at one point in time, and second point in time, we have to question the team also for their performance, right? You have to pull up uh, for making quarterly results and everything. So how do you play this game, right? Develop a trust and questioning the team at the same time.
So I have a very simple, I believe, and that you can never demand trust from people. You have to earn trust from people. Okay, and it takes time to earn trust from people. And I believe in earning trust, it is not what you say, but what you do. So, to me, one of the simplest formulas of earning trust from my team members or my peers or my bosses is that I should have a very good say-do ratio. If I say I'm doing something, I should do it. If I'm not able to do it, I should tell them, no, this is beyond my capability or beyond my bandwidth to do it. I think when your say-do ratio is very good consistently over a period of time, then people begin trusting you that this guy is going to do what he's told us. Or if he's not able to do it, he'll tell us he cannot do it. So I think that's a good way of earning trust, and it's also a good way of pushing performance, because if you have to do everything that you have said, then you have to push yourself to perform. And when people see that you're performing, I think it leads to performance in the team as well. That's my very simple take on it. It may be a simplistic take, but that's what you do. Yeah.
Hello? Yeah. Great hearing you guys and hearing a conversation. I'm keen to know how you structure teams where in an organization like Tata's or Titan, it seems that the younger people are pushed towards taking care of digital, and the older people seem to be a bit divorced from believing in e-commerce bottom line or digital marketing responses. So when a 25-year-old is leading the business in e-commerce or digital marketing, and the boss of the business is elsewhere focused, how do you get that business unit leader to really look at the fact that a 25-year-old perhaps is not adept to making all calls for all things digital?
Mithun,
Want to take this or
Mithun, you
it's-
led an e-commerce business. You want to answer
Like-
this? How do you? Okay. So let me tell you what I feel. Okay. I do agree that a 25-year-old has to build maturity to lead a business. No doubt about it. The 25-year-old may be very good at digital and maybe a digital marketing genius, and I would respect the 25-year-old for that and make sure that they're empowered to do the best work on digital marketing. But when it comes to decisions about people, or it comes to decisions about strategy, or it comes to decisions about structure, then I would actually get the even if the 25-year-old is in a responsible role, I would get the 25-year-old to be very carefully mentored by someone who has lots more experience. And also to understand the pros and cons of each of those very, very important decisions that are being taken. I'd also, my view, and many people may not agree with me, is that that 25-year-old should grow through a couple of responsibilities before getting mature enough to lead a business. And I would actually put that 25-year-old through one or two increasing levels of responsibilities, where they not only handle digital marketing first, but then they learn to handle a few members of a team and motivate and inspire them. And then they also have to take a couple of difficult decisions about strategy, something to be closed down, something to be opened, some choices to be made before they eventually would lead a business. Otherwise, I think sometimes you may be setting them up for premature failure if you don't do that. I think young people are very good at leading businesses. I have seen many people in the Tata Group who in their 30s are leading very, very good businesses in the group, and they are very successful. But they go through, I think, these levels of learning. That's my view, and I know different people here may have different points of view.
You want to continue, Harish, or with the questions, or we have a couple more? Okay.
It's a lovely conversation. Thank you. Lots of gems. What's your view on failure in the organizational context? Is it okay to fail? How should an organization deal with individual failure?
So, Aparna, maybe you can answer this after I can as well, but I'd like to, I have learned more from my failures than my successes. I'm not going to make this a session where I take you through a laundry list of my failures, but I've learned much more from my failures than I have from my successes, and I think all of us as individuals do, because failure tests our character. Success doesn't test our character. From an organizational point of view, I think organizations have to give within boundaries, within boundaries of what the financial or organizational risk is. I think organizations have to permit their people to experiment, and within those boundaries permit both failure and success. Then I think you get the most innovative organizations. So for instance, in the Tata Group, we have an award every year called Dare to Try. This is for people who dared to try something new but failed. So that way, you're also rewarding people who have tried to be bold, but who have not really succeeded in doing something. That's my view. I think failure is very, very important, and perhaps one of the most underrated aspects of organizations.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Just to add a filmy reference, I think one of my favorite songs is still the one from Mr. India, where they sing, "No, zindagi ki yahi reet hai, haar ke baad hi jeet hai." So I really believe that I've learned much, much more from my failures than anything else.
Maybe we can
Make
take
that the last. Oh,
Sure.
oh, there's
Yeah, we are
one in
reaching
front
9
also. We're closing up to.
Yeah, hi. It was a great conversation. Thank you. I just have a small question. Even in the rapid fire, you addressed that question regarding culture. So when you are starting off a new office, or rather building a team, I believe that that is the right time to start cultivating a culture in your team. So how do you really go about it? Does it just happen? Do you take steps towards cultivating it? And if so, what would be one's aim and how should one go about with it?
So that's a very broad question, okay? And if I reflect on the very small teams that I was part of and which then became larger, uh, I think yes, the time when you form a team is also the time to set in place some elements of culture. So if one element of culture in your organization is respect for people, then that has to start right from when you are a team of 3 or 4 people. Then only it will grow to many more people. If one element of culture in your organization is agility and speed, then it has to start right from the time I think the founders of the organization have to demonstrate that for people to take it forward. If one element of your culture is that you are a fun company, fun to work in, then right from the beginning you have to make it a fun organization for people to work in. So I don't think you should lose any time in, but culture should also not be forced. It should be what you actually believe in. What kind of a culture do you think will work for your organization? What are you convinced about? That is what you should put in place. And you should not overbrain it. You know, what are the 3, 4 main things? Is it respect for people? Is it agility? Is it customer orientation? What are the 3, 4 values that mean a lot for you? Those are the ones that should be built into culture. And how does culture happen in our families, leave organizations alone? It happens when you see how your parents behave. It happens when you see what you learn from your grandparents. It happens naturally by the behavior of your elders and by the behavior of your siblings in a home. I think that's the natural way a culture should happen in an organization. But it happens because the family believes in something. And not every family's belief may be the same. For instance, in some families, the value of education is very high. In other families, the value of education may not be so high, but the value of achievement may be very high in life. So those are set by what you listen and see of what your elders have done since your childhood. I hope that was a satisfactory answer. Yeah.
I think there was a last question at the back.
Thank you. I feel empowered already after listening to this for my tomorrow. So thank you. I'm aligned on a lot of things that you spoke about. The number one point being kindness and generosity. It's something that I try to live by. One of the the question, you spoke about take your work seriously, but at the same time, don't take yourself too seriously. Having left a corporate job to set up my own team, and we're now from one person, we're about 250 people now across India. I do have a lot of concerns, and it's more about me of overcompensating to retain my team members because they always have the power and the ability to move elsewhere. And my partner, my family, they all constantly remind me that you've gotten this far and you got to trust yourself more. But I still have this intrinsic demand or fear of losing people who work with me, who I value so much. And in the process, I indulge in over-kindness and over-generosity, which of late has been backfiring, if I can say. How do you draw the line, or where do you draw the line? Is there a line that needs to be drawn?
So I think people have different motivations in life, and not everyone would have the same motivation. For some people, I think compensation may be a very, very key motivation. And for such people, the retention, whatever retention policies you have in your company, I'm not fully cognizant of what you do, but companies would have retention bonuses, they may have ESOPs in place, they may have various retention mechanisms for people for whom compensation is a key. There may be some other people for whom the quality of work is very, very important. Um, Compensation is important, but the quality of work is doubly important. For such people, it's the quality of work which really matters, and what kind of work you empower them to do. For many people in the first 5 years of their career or first 7 years of their career, learning is very important. Who is the boss I'm working with? Am I learning enough from her or him? And then you have to pair them up with the right boss so that they can learn a lot from those people. So, you know, as a marketer, what I've learned is that the needs of all customers are not the same. You know, you need to segment customers by their needs, and then as I started my career marketing tea and coffee, and you had different teas and coffees that you marketed to different people. You know, someone likes green tea, someone likes black tea, someone likes Darjeeling tea, someone likes masala chai or elaichi chai. You have to market those differently. Similarly, I think in an organization, different employees have different needs, and we have to make sure that we offer them what their needs are. Otherwise, they will not stay with us, they will leave.
That
But on compensation alone, I have learned over the years it's important to be fair in the compensation you provide. And I think that fairness attracts and retains a lot of people.
Well, on that very wise note, thank you, Harish, for being here. Thank you to all of you for spending your evening with us. It's been a really interesting conversation. I hope you've enjoyed it also. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks to all of you for coming and this very intimate session, for listening to us. And those of you who wish to pick up Office Secrets and read it, I hope you enjoy the book thoroughly. I want to tell you that this is an unserious book. It's written in a very fun and irreverent style, but there are some nice messages you can get from its pages. So you can enjoy it as you wish to. Thanks a lot and have a nice evening.